The research station floated in the darkness of space like a metal flower. Its silver panels caught the light from distant stars. Inside, dozens of alien scientists moved through white corridors, checking screens and reading data. They all shared one thing: fear of the planet below. Vareth 9 hung beneath the station like a green and black bruise. Clouds swirled across its surface, hiding storms that could tear metal apart. For 3 years, the Galactic Scientific Consortium had tried to understand this world. For 3 years, they had failed. Corporal Han Taeyang walked through the main laboratory with steady steps. He was tall for a human, with dark hair cut short and eyes that missed nothing. His uniform was simple and clean. Around him, aliens stopped their work to stare. They had never seen a human before. Dr. Kira Bosch approached him. She had 4 arms and skin that looked like purple crystal. Light passed through her body, making small rainbows on the floor. She was the lead scientist on the station. "Corporal Taeyang," she said. Her voice sounded like wind chimes. "Thank you for coming. We need your assessment." Taeyang nodded. "Show me what you have." Kira led him to a large screen on the wall. Commander Nix Voltar stood there already. The commander was twice Taeyang's height, with scales like a lizard and eyes that could see in the dark. He looked at Taeyang with clear doubt. "A human," Voltar said slowly. "Your species only joined the consortium 5 years ago. What can you offer that we have not tried?" Taeyang looked at the screen. It showed numbers and charts. "Tell me about the planet first." Kira touched the screen with one of her 4 hands. The image changed to show Vareth 9 spinning slowly. The surface temperature changes by 200 degrees every day. The atmosphere has pressure that crushes our strongest materials. Rain falls that can melt through ship hulls. Radiation levels are 10 times what kills most species. We sent 53 probes, Voltar added. None lasted more than 6 minutes. The planet is death itself. Taeyang studied the planet, but something is moving down there. Kira's crystal body flickered with surprise. "Yes, how did you know?" "You called me here. You wouldn't need assessment for a dead world." Taeyang pointed at the screen. "What did you detect?" A new voice spoke from behind them. "Energy signatures in the canyon system." Taeyang turned. A young woman in a white lab coat walked toward them. She had long black hair tied back and carried a datapad. "Dr. Park Minji," she introduced herself in Korean, then switched to Galactic Common. "I'm the xenobiologist assigned here. The reading started 3 months ago. Something is producing heat and electromagnetic pulses in the deep canyons. Could it be geological?" Taeyang asked. "No." Minji pulled up more data. "The patterns are too regular, too organized. It's like," she paused, "like something breathing." The aliens in the room shifted nervously. Kira's light dimmed. Voltar's scales rippled. "Impossible," the commander said. "Nothing lives there. Nothing can live there." Taeyang looked at the data for a long moment. The numbers told a story. Heat spikes. Energy bursts. Movement patterns. Deep in a canyon where even their best machines died in minutes. "I'll go," he said simply. The room went silent. Every alien stared at him. "Excuse me?" Voltar's voice was sharp. "I'll go down to the surface. I'll investigate the canyon system." Kira's 4 arms moved in agitation. "Corporal, you don't understand. This planet will kill you. Our probes are built to survive extreme conditions. They're made of materials that can withstand pressures and temperatures far beyond what any biological creature can endure. They still fail." "I understand," Taeyang said calmly. "No, you don't." Voltar stepped closer. "I have sent machines down there that cost more than your entire ship. Machines with shields and armor and power supplies designed for the worst environments we've ever found. They last minutes. You are flesh and blood. You will die in seconds." Taeyang looked up at the large commander without fear. "Maybe, but maybe not. Humans evolved on a death world too. Earth is classified as a Class 3 hazard world," Kira said carefully. "That's dangerous, yes. But Vareth 9 is Class 12. There are only 6 Class 12 worlds in the entire galaxy. They're called extinction worlds." "Then it's lucky I'm here," Taeyang said. He looked at Minji. "You have the most recent data?" Minji nodded slowly. She seemed torn between excitement and horror. "Yes, the energy readings are strongest in Canyon 7, but Taeyang..." She switched to Korean. "This is suicide," he answered her in the same language. "Maybe, but someone has to look. If something is alive down there, we need to know what it is." Voltar made a sound like grinding rocks. "This is madness. I cannot authorize a biological being to go to the surface. It violates 17 safety protocols. Then I volunteer, Taeyang said. As a free citizen of the consortium, I have the right to take personal risks for scientific discovery. Article 47 of the Consortium Charter. The commander's eyes narrowed. You've read the charter. I read everything. Taeyang turned to Kira. How long until you can prepare a descent vehicle? Kira looked at Voltar. The commander's scales had turned a darker shade of green. Finally, he spoke. If you die down there, your species will blame us. No, Taeyang said. I'll record a statement, my choice. A responsibility, but why? Kira asked softly. Why would you do this? Taeyang looked at the image of Vareth 9 on the screen. The green and black planet turned slowly, storms raging across its surface. He thought about all the probes that had died trying to reach the truth. He thought about the mysterious energy readings. Most of all, he thought about what it meant to be human in a galaxy full of species that didn't understand what humans could endure. Because I can, he said simply. Because maybe that's what humans are for. The next 6 hours passed in preparation. Engineers designed a protective suit. Scientists gathered every sensor they could fit onto Taeyang's equipment. Minji prepared charts and maps of the canyon system. Taeyang sat in the preparation room watching the aliens work. They moved with quick nervous energy. They were afraid for him. He found that touching. Minji entered with a datapad. I've uploaded everything to your suit's computer. Temperature readings, pressure maps, radiation levels. Everything we know. Thank you, Taeyang said. She sat down next to him. In Korean, she asked, Are you scared? He considered the question. A little. Mostly curious. The others think you're crazy. Maybe I am. Taeyang. She hesitated. Earth is dangerous, yes. But Varath 9 is something else. Please be careful, he smiled at her. I will. And I'll come back with answers. Kira entered the room. It's time, Corporal. Taeyang stood and followed her to the launch bay. The descent vehicle waited, looking small and fragile. Through the windows, he could see Vareth 9 below. It looked beautiful and terrible at once. He climbed into the vehicle. The door sealed behind him. Through the window, he saw Minji, Kira, and Voltar watching. The commander's scales were pale with worry. The launch controller's voice crackled in his helmet. Beginning launch sequence. Taeyang took a deep breath. Below him, the deadly planet waited. In minutes, he would either make history or become another casualty of humanity's curiosity. The vehicle dropped away from the station and fell toward the green storms below. The descent vehicle shook as it hit the upper atmosphere. Taeyang watched the clouds rush toward him through the window. They were thick and green, swirling with angry energy. Lightning flashed inside them, bright enough to hurt his eyes. Entering atmosphere, he reported calmly, starting to feel turbulence. Back on the station, Choi Hyun sat at the mission control console. He was younger than Taeyang, with glasses that kept sliding down his nose. He pushed them up nervously as he watched the data stream in. Around him, a dozen alien scientists crowded close, watching screens that showed Taeyang's vital signs and camera feed. Copy that, Hyun said. Your heart rate is elevated but stable. Temperature inside the vehicle is rising. I can feel it, Taeyang said. The temperature gauge on his suit showed the outside was already at 300 degrees. The vehicle's shields were holding, but barely. Dr. Kira Bosch stood next to Hyun, her crystalline body flickering with worried light. This is where probe 47 failed. The pressure crushed its hull. The vehicle groaned. Metal creaked. Taeyang felt the walls pressing inward slightly. He stayed calm and checked his equipment. The suit he wore was much thinner than what the aliens had wanted. They had designed something with 17 layers of protection. He had refused it. Too bulky. Too restrictive. Instead, he wore a suit with 3 layers and a reinforced helmet. Selen Kix, the insectoid engineer who had built the suit, had vibrated with distress when Taeyang rejected the heavier armor. You'll die. She had clicked through her translator. The pressure alone will crush your organs. Taeyang had just smiled and said, Let's find out. Now dropping through hell, he was testing that confidence. The vehicle shuddered harder. Warning lights flashed red across the control panel. The pressure was incredible. He could feel it in his chest pressing against his ribs. Pressure at 15 atmospheres and climbing, Hyun reported. Taeyang, the vehicle might not make it. Then I'll walk, Taeyang said. What? Kira's voice was sharp with alarm. If the vehicle fails, I'll walk. That's why I'm here. Machines break. Humans adapt. Commander Voltar's voice cut in. This is insanity. Abort the mission. Return to the station. Negative, Taeyang said. I'm already halfway down. Going back now wastes the trip. The vehicle broke through the lowest cloud layer. Taeyang saw the surface for the first time. It was a nightmare landscape. Black rocks stretched in every direction, cracked and broken. Rivers of something that wasn't water cut through the stone, glowing with chemical light. In the distance, he could see the massive canyon system that was his target. Rain began to hit the vehicle. It wasn't like any rain Taeyang had seen before. It was thick and yellow, and where it touched the vehicle's hull, smoke rose. The shield sparked and sizzled. That's sulfuric acid, Minji's voice said quietly. Concentrated enough to dissolve most metals. Good thing I'm not metal, Taeyang replied. The vehicle's engines screamed as they fought against the wind. The computer was struggling to find a landing site. Finally, it settled on a flat area of rock about 2 kilometers from the canyon edge. The landing was rough. The vehicle hit hard, bounced once, and slid across the stone before stopping. Alarms blared. The shields were failing. Hull integrity was at 60% and dropping fast. I'm going out, Taeyang announced. Wait, Kira almost shouted. Your suit isn't designed for prolonged exposure. It'll hold long enough. Taeyang moved to the airlock. He could hear the acid rain hammering on the hull above him. It sounded like drums. He sealed his helmet and checked the suit pressure. Everything red-green. He took a deep breath and opened the outer door. The acid rain hit him immediately. He could hear it sizzling against his suit. The sound was loud in his helmet. He stepped out onto the black rock and looked around. The planet was more hostile than any world he had ever seen. The sky was dark green, filled with churning clouds. The rain fell in thick drops that exploded when they hit the ground, creating small craters. The wind was strong enough to make him lean forward to keep his balance. And the heat was oppressive even through the suit's cooling system. I'm on the surface, he reported. Back on the station, every alien was silent. They stared at the screens showing the human standing in conditions that should have killed him instantly. Impossible, Voltar whispered. Hyun's voice was tight with stress. Taeyang, your suit's outer layer is degrading. The acid is eating through it. How long do I have? Taeyang asked calmly. At this rate, maybe 2 hours before it reaches the second layer. Then I better move fast. Taeyang checked his compass and started walking toward the canyon. The black rock was uneven and sharp. It crunched under his boots. Small creatures scattered as he approached. They looked like crystals with legs scuttling away into cracks in the stone. Life existed here after all, though barely. I'm seeing small organisms, Taeyang reported. Crystalline structure. Moving quickly. Minji's voice was filled with excitement despite her fear. Crystalline life forms? That's theoretically possible in high-pressure environments, but never confirmed. Can you capture one? I'll try. Taeyang moved toward a group of the crystal creatures. They were about the size of his hand, with 6 legs and no visible eyes. As he got close, one of them suddenly jumped at him. It hit his chest plate with surprising force. Sharp legs tried to pierce the suit material. Taeyang grabbed it carefully and pulled it off. It struggled in his grip, surprisingly strong. Aggressive little thing, he commented. He pulled a collection container from his belt and managed to push the creature inside. It rattled against the clear walls, trying to break free. Sample secured, he said. Your heart rate barely changed, Hyun observed with wonder. That thing attacked you and you're completely calm. It's small, Taeyang said simply. Not much threat. He continued walking. The canyon was getting closer. The ground began to slope downward. The acid rain seemed to be getting worse. His suit computer beeped a warning. The outer layer was degrading faster than predicted. Then Taeyang saw something that made him stop. Ahead, carved into a massive boulder, were symbols. They were geometric patterns, too regular to be natural. Someone had made them. I found something, he said. Artificial markings. This planet had intelligent life. The scientists exploded into excited chatter. Kira's voice cut through them. Photograph everything. Taeyang activated his suit's camera and documented the symbols. They were strange and beautiful, each one different but following some pattern he didn't understand. They looked old, worn down by time and acid rain. Could be millions of years old, Minji said softly. Or they could be recent, Taeyang replied. We don't know how fast erosion works here. He moved past the boulder and found more. Symbols covered rocks all along the path toward the canyon. They seemed to be markers pointing the way. I think these are directions, Taiyang said. Someone wanted others to find the canyon. Or they were warnings to stay away, Voltar suggested darkly. The canyon edge appeared suddenly. Taiyang stopped at the rim and looked down. The canyon was enormous, cutting deep into the planet's crust. He couldn't see the bottom. Strange lights flickered in the depths, the same energy signatures Minji had detected. I'm at the canyon, Taiyang reported. It's deeper than our scans suggested. Can you see what's producing the energy? Minji asked. No, I need to go down. The suit won't last, Hyun warned. You're already at 50% integrity on the outer layer. Taiyang looked at the steep canyon walls. There were ledges and outcroppings, enough to climb down if he was careful. I didn't come this far to turn back now. Taiyang, Minji's voice was pleading. Please be careful. We're losing signal strength. The deeper you go, the harder it will be to communicate. Understood. Taiyang found a path down and began his descent. The canyon walls were wet with acid rain and slippery. He moved carefully, testing each handhold before trusting his weight to it. The crystal creatures were everywhere on the canyon walls. They watched him pass with what seemed like curiosity. Some followed him, climbing along the rocks nearby. They didn't attack again, just observed. As Taiyang climbed deeper, the light from above faded. The canyon walls began to glow with a soft blue light. Mineral deposits, he guessed, or maybe some kind of bioluminescence. The temperature was rising. His suit's cooling system was working overtime. Temperature now at 400 degrees, he reported. His voice was starting to break up with static. Still manageable. On the station, the aliens watched in disbelief. 400 degrees, Sun Kicks clicked. His blood should be boiling. His brain should be cooking inside his skull. Humans regulate temperature differently, Minji explained, though she looked worried too. But this is beyond what should be survivable. Taiyang continued down. The energy readings were getting stronger. He could feel something now, a vibration in the rock, like a heartbeat slow and steady. I feel it, he said. Something is definitely down here. His suit computer beeped urgently. The outer layer was gone. The acid had eaten completely through it. Now the second layer was exposed. Taiyang, Hyun's voice was distorted with static. You need to back. Suit failing? Say again? Taiyang called. You're breaking up. Only static answered. He was on his own now, climbing into the depths of an alien death trap with no way to call for help. Any sane person would turn back. But Taiyang had never claimed to be entirely sane. He looked down into the deeper Taiyang climbed, the hotter it became. The blue glow from the canyon walls grew brighter, casting strange shadows across the rock. His suit computer showed the temperature had passed 500 degrees. The second layer of protection was holding, but he could feel the heat now. It was like standing too close to a fire. The static in his helmet had become constant noise. Occasionally he heard fragments of voices, Hyun trying to reach him, Minji calling his name, but he couldn't respond. The canyon walls were blocking all signals. He was alone in the most hostile environment any human had ever entered. Taiyang didn't mind the solitude. It helped him focus. He watched every handhold, tested every step. The crystal creatures still followed him, now in groups of 20 or more. They climbed along the walls beside him like an escort. After 2 hours of climbing, he reached a ledge wide enough to stand on. He took the opportunity to rest and check his equipment. The suit's outer 2 layers were completely gone. Only the inner layer remained, and it was showing stress fractures. He looked up. The canyon rim was lost in darkness far above. Looking down, he could see structures below. Buildings. Or what remained of them. Ruins, he whispered to himself. The ruins were carved directly into the canyon walls. They were geometric and precise, made from the same black rock as the rest of the planet. But these rocks had been shaped by tools and intelligence. Windows looked out onto the empty air. Doorways led into darkness. It was a city built into the canyon itself. Taiyang continued down toward the ruins. As he got closer, he could see more details. Symbols covered every surface, the same geometric patterns he had seen above. They were everywhere, layered over each other like they had been written and rewritten countless times. He reached the first building and stepped inside. The interior was surprisingly intact. The walls were smooth and covered in more symbols. In the center of the room stood something that looked like a table, carved from a single piece of stone. On the table lay objects that might have been tools or maybe weapons. It was impossible to tell. Taeyang picked up one of the objects. It was heavy and cold, shaped like a cylinder with a grip. When he touched it, lights flickered inside it briefly, then died. Whatever power source it had used was long exhausted. He explored deeper into the ruins. Room after room revealed more mysteries. He found what might have been living quarters with raised platforms that could have been beds. He found large chambers with high ceilings that echoed with his footsteps. He found smaller rooms filled with objects he couldn't identify, and everywhere always were the symbols. Taeyang took pictures of everything. His suit's camera was still working, storing data even though he couldn't transmit it. Eventually, when he climbed back up, this information would revolutionize understanding of this world. In one room, he found something different. A wall covered in what looked like a star map. He recognized some of the patterns. Those were nearby star systems. And there, marked with a special symbol, was a small yellow star. Sol, Earth's sun. They knew about Earth, Taeyang said aloud. His voice echoed in the empty room. The implications were staggering. This civilization had known about humanity's homeworld. But these ruins were ancient, millions of years old at least. Had they visited Earth? Had they watched early humans? He took careful pictures of the star map, then moved on. The buildings went deeper into the canyon, each level lower than the last. Taeyang followed them down. The temperature continued to rise. 600 degrees now. He could feel sweat running down his back inside the suit. His throat was dry. He drank water from the suit's supply, grateful that at least something still worked properly. The vibration he had felt before was stronger now. It pulsed through the rock like a slow heartbeat. Boom, 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 regular and steady. At the lowest level of the ruins, Taeyang found a massive doorway. It was different from the others, larger and more ornate. The symbols around it were bigger and deeper, carved with obvious importance. The doorway was sealed with a circular door made of metal that hadn't corroded despite the age and acid rain. Taeyang examined the door carefully. In its center was a panel with shapes that could be pressed. A lock. He studied the symbols around the door, looking for clues. One sequence repeated several times. He pressed the shapes in that order. The door shuddered. Ancient machinery ground to life. Slowly, the circular door began to roll aside. A blast of hot air hit Taeyang like a physical force. The temperature gauge spiked. 700 degrees. The heat was almost unbearable now. But the door was open, and beyond it was a corridor that led deeper still. Taeyang stepped through. On the station, chaos had erupted. Li Jiwan, the communications specialist, was frantically trying to boost the signal. Her fingers flew across the controls while she shouted updates to the others. "I've got something," she called out. "Brief contact. He's still alive." Park Minji rushed to her side. "Can you reach him? Can he hear us?" "I don't know. The interference is too strong." Jiwan adjusted another setting. "Wait. I'm getting data." His suit is uploading something. Images began to appear on the screens. The alien scientists crowded around, staring in wonder at the pictures of ruins and symbols and ancient objects. "By the stars," Kira breathed. "A lost civilization." Commander Voltar studied the star map image. His scales had turned bright green with excitement. They knew about other worlds. This was an advanced species. "Look at this," Minji pointed to one image. "That symbol there. I've seen it before in human archaeology, in cave paintings from Earth, dated to over 1,000,000 years ago." The room went silent as everyone processed what she was saying. "Are you suggesting these beings visited Earth?" Voltar asked. "Or maybe," Minji said slowly, "they came from Earth, long before modern humans." Deep in the canyon, Taeyang walked through the corridor. Emergency lighting still functioned somehow, casting a red glow over everything. The walls here were metal, not stone. They were warm to the touch. The vibration was so strong now that he could hear it, a deep thrumming that resonated in his chest. The corridor ended at another chamber. This one was vast, bigger than any of the others. The ceiling was lost in darkness above, and in the center of the chamber stood a machine. It was enormous, rising several stories tall. Tubes and pipes connected different sections. Lights blinked on panels across its surface. Despite millions of years, despite being buried in the most hostile planet imaginable, the machine still worked. Taeyang approached it carefully. The heat radiating from it was intense. His suit computer was screaming warnings now. 800 degrees. The inner layer was failing. He had minutes, maybe less, but he couldn't leave. Not yet. He examined the machine, taking pictures and notes. It was some kind of reactor, he realized. It was producing enormous amounts of energy. That's what Minji had detected from orbit. This machine still running after countless ages. Around the reactor, he found more objects. Control panels, screens that showed alien text scrolling past, and something else. Containers. Large cylindrical containers arranged in a circle around the reactor. Taiyang moved to the nearest container. It was transparent, made of material that looked like glass but felt like metal. Inside, he could see something floating in liquid. It looked organic, like tissue preserved in fluid. He shone his light into the next container. More organic material, and the next. All of them held specimens of some kind. Then he found the container with the warning symbols. They were all over it, bright red and unmistakable even though he didn't know the language. Warning. Danger. Do not open. Inside this container, the organic material was different. It moved. Just slightly, just enough to notice. A ripple through the liquid. A small contraction of tissue. Taiyang's blood went cold despite the heat. Something was alive in there. He looked at the other containers with new understanding. These weren't just specimens. They were prisoners. This entire facility was a prison, and the reactor was powering whatever kept the prisoners contained. He found a control panel near the containers and activated it. Text appeared on a screen in the alien language. But below it, to his shock, were symbols he recognized. Mathematical notations, universal constants, things that would mean the same to any intelligent species. The numbers told a story. The reactor was failing. Slowly but inevitably, its power was draining. The calculations showed projections. In 3 months, maybe 4, the reactor would shut down completely. And when it did, the containers would open. Taiyang photographed everything. The containers, the reactor, the warnings. He needed to get this information back to the station. The consortium needed to know what was waiting here. He turned to leave and froze. One of the crystal creatures was on the reactor. But this one was bigger. Much bigger. It was the size of a person, with dozens of legs and a body that pulsed with light. It stared at him with no visible eyes, yet he felt the weight of its attention. More movement caught his eye. Other large crystal creatures were emerging from gaps in the machinery. They surrounded him, 6 of them. They didn't attack. They just watched. Taiyang realized these weren't simple animals. These were guards, programmed or evolved to protect this place. "I'm not here to damage anything," he said aloud, knowing they probably couldn't understand. "I'm just investigating." One of the creatures moved closer. It reached out with a crystalline limb. Taiyang ran through the red-lit corridor as alarm screamed in his helmet. The suit's inner layer was breaking down. He could feel the heat on his skin now, like touching a hot stove. Every breath burned his lungs despite the air supply. He reached the circular door and threw himself through it. The cooler air of the ruins beyond felt like ice water by comparison, though the temperature was still over 600 degrees. He staggered to a wall and leaned against it, gasping. His suit computer was barely functioning. The display flickered and died. He was running on borrowed time now. Without the computer, he had no way to monitor his condition. He could only trust his body to tell him when he was dying. Taiyang pushed away from the wall and started climbing. His legs felt heavy. His head pounded. Early signs of heat exhaustion, he recognized. He needed to get to cooler levels fast. The climb was brutal. His hand slipped on the hot rock. His muscles screamed with fatigue. But he forced himself upward, level by level, through the ancient city carved into the canyon walls. On the station, tension filled the control room. Li Jiwan had lost all contact with Taiyang. His last data transmission had cut off abruptly. Now there was only silence. "How long since we heard from him?" Commander Voltar asked quietly. 6 hours, Jiwan replied. Her voice was tight with worry. Park Minji stared at the screen showing the last images Taiyang had sent. The reactor, the containers, the warning symbols. She had been analyzing them non-stop, trying to decode the alien language. "I think I understand some of it," she said suddenly. Everyone turned to look at her. "These symbols here," she pointed to the screen, "they repeat across multiple images. I ran them through our linguistic database. The mathematical notations help establish context." "What do they say?" Kira asked. Minji's face was pale. Warning, containment, extinction, and this word appears most often. She highlighted one symbol. Weapon. The room went very quiet. A weapon, Voltar said slowly. They built a prison for a weapon on the most hostile planet they could find. Or they made the planet hostile to create the prison, Minji added. Look at the geological data. Vareth 9 shouldn't exist. The atmospheric composition doesn't make sense. The chemical processes are wrong. This planet was engineered. Dr. Kira Bosch's crystalline body darkened with fear. They created this entire world as a cage. And Taiyang is down there with whatever they caged, Baek Sujin said. She was the human engineer who had been preparing emergency extraction vehicles. We need to get him out. We don't even know if he's alive, Voltar said grimly. He's alive. Minji's voice was firm. I know Taiyang. He doesn't give up easily. Far below, Taiyang was proving her right. He had reached the upper levels of the ruins. The temperature had dropped to 500 degrees. His suit was in tatters now, barely holding together. But he could breathe. He could move. He was still alive. He found a chamber with smooth walls and collapsed against them. He needed to rest, just for a few minutes. He closed his eyes. A sound woke him. A scraping noise like claws on stone. Taiyang opened his eyes. The large crystal creatures were back. All 6 of them stood in the doorway watching him. They had followed him up from the depths. He struggled to his feet. His body protested every movement. The creatures didn't attack. They simply stood there as if waiting. Then one of them moved past him to the wall. It touched the symbols carved there with one crystalline limb. Light flowed from the creature into the stone. The symbols began to glow. Images appeared on the wall. Moving images like a video projection. Taiyang watched in amazement as the wall showed him scenes from the past. He saw beings that looked almost human but not quite. Taller, with broader shoulders and thicker bones. They moved through cities of glass and metal. They built ships that traveled between stars. They were advanced and powerful. Then the images showed them creating something. In laboratories, scientists worked on organic material. They were building something at the cellular level. A weapon, Taiyang understood. A biological weapon. The images showed what happened when they lost control. The weapon escaped. It consumed everything it touched. Buildings fell. Cities burned. Entire populations disappeared. The weapon grew and evolved and adapted. Nothing could stop it. The beings fought back. They used fire and radiation and chemicals. Nothing worked. The weapon survived everything. It learned from every attack and became stronger. Finally, the beings made a desperate choice. They took the weapon to a barren world. They built a prison deep underground. They created the reactor to power containment fields, and then they changed the entire planet, making it so hostile that nothing could survive there to accidentally release the weapon. They made Vareth 9 into a death trap. The images showed the beings leaving, ships departing into space, a last look back at the green and black planet. Then the images faded. The crystal creature pulled away from the wall. The glow died. Taiyang stared at the now dark symbols, his mind racing. You're guardians, he said to the creatures. They left you here to watch over the prison. The creatures didn't respond. They couldn't speak. But one of them moved to another wall and touched it. A different set of symbols glowed. These showed a map. Star systems marked and labeled. And one particular planet marked with special attention. A world with blue oceans and green continents. Earth. They went to Earth, Taiyang whispered. The implications crashed over him like a wave. The beings who built this prison had gone to Earth. Millions of years ago they had walked on humanity's homeworld, and there they had stayed. There they had evolved, adapting to a slightly less hostile environment over countless generations until they became human. We're descendants, Taiyang said aloud. Humans are descended from the species that built this place. That explains so much. Why humans could survive conditions that killed other species. Why Earth was considered a death world by galactic standards. Why Taiyang could walk through hell and keep going. It was in his DNA. His ancestors had been built to survive the worst the universe could offer, and they had chosen to forget. To leave the weapon behind and start fresh on a new world. To become something better than the species that had created such horror. The crystal creature touched the wall again. One final image appeared. A warning. The reactor failing. The containment fields weakening. A date translated into mathematical notation that any species could understand. 3 months. Maybe less. Taeyang struggled to his feet. He had to get back to the station. They needed to know. They needed to prepare. The creatures moved aside, clearing a path. They understood what he needed to do. Taeyang climbed. His body was running on pure determination now. Every step was agony. The heat had damaged tissue throughout his body. He had radiation burns that would take months to heal if he survived. His lungs felt like they were full of glass. But he climbed. Hours passed. Or maybe days. Time had no meaning in the darkness of the canyon. There was only the next handhold. The next ledge. The next level higher, he passed out twice. Both times he woke to find crystal creatures around him, their bodies glowing with soft light as if encouraging him to continue. He couldn't tell if they were the same ones from the ruins or different guardians stationed throughout the canyon. Finally, impossibly, he saw light above. Real light. The green glow of Verath 9's sky. Taeyang pulled himself over the canyon rim and collapsed on the black rock. Acid rain fell on his ruined suit, on his exposed skin where the material had burned away. It stung, but he barely felt it. He was too exhausted to care. He activated his emergency beacon. The suit was dead, but the beacon ran on its own power supply. A simple signal. "I'm here. I'm alive on the station." Alarms went off. Li Jiwan screamed with joy. "Beacon! I have his beacon!" Everyone rushed to the control room. The screen showed a single blinking dot on the surface of Verath 9. "Launch the extraction vehicle," Voltar ordered. "Now." Pek Sujin was already moving. The extraction vehicle had been ready for hours, waiting. She jumped into the pilot's seat and launched before anyone could join her. She didn't care. She was getting Taeyang back. The vehicle screamed through the atmosphere. Sujin ignored the warning systems, pushed the engines harder than they were meant to go. She could see the beacon below, a small light in the darkness. She landed hard next to Taeyang's position. The acid rain was already eating through the vehicle's shields. She had minutes. Sujin ran out in her own protective suit, built for brief surface exposure. She found Taeyang lying on the rock, barely conscious. His suit was destroyed. His skin was burned and blistered, but he was alive. "Come on," she said, pulling him to his feet. "Let's go home." He managed a weak smile. "Got data," he mumbled. "Important. They need to know. Tell them later. Move now." She half-carried, half-dragged him to the vehicle. They fell inside and she sealed the door. The engines roared to life. They lifted off just as the shields failed completely. Taeyang collapsed in the passenger seat. Through the window, he could see Verath 9 falling away below them. The green storm swirled over the black rocks. Somewhere down there, deep in a canyon, an ancient weapon waited in its failing prison. He closed his eyes as unconsciousness finally claimed him. His last thought was simple. They needed a plan. Humanity had 3 months to stop an extinction-level threat that their own ancestors had barely contained. 3 months to prove that humans... Taeyang woke in the medical bay 3 days later. White walls surrounded him. Machines beeped softly, monitoring his vital signs. His body felt like it had been put through a furnace, which wasn't far from the truth. Park Minji sat in a chair beside his bed. She was asleep, her head resting on her arms on the edge of the bed. She looked exhausted. "Minji," Taeyang said softly. She woke instantly. Relief flooded her face. "You're awake." She reached for the call button. "I need to alert the doctors." "Wait." Taeyang caught her hand. "First tell me. Did the data upload?" "Everything," Minji said. "Your suit computer transmitted everything before it died. The images, the recordings, the scans. We have it all." Her expression grew serious. "Taeyang, what you found changes everything." The medical bay doors opened. Dr. Kira Bosch entered, followed by Commander Voltar and a dozen other scientists. They all stared at Taeyang like he was a miracle. "Corporal Han Taeyang," Voltar said formally. "You survived 800-degree temperatures, concentrated acid exposure, radiation levels 50 times lethal dose, and physical trauma that would kill any known species 3 times over." How Taeyang tried to sit up. Pain shot through his body. Minji helped him, adjusting the bed so he could recline comfortably. "I'm human," he said simply. "We're harder to kill than you think." "That's becoming very clear," Kira said. Her crystalline body flickered with amazed light. "Your medical scans are impossible. You have 2nd and 3rd degree burns over 40% of your body, radiation damage to multiple organs, severe dehydration and heat exhaustion. Yet you're healing. Already we can see tissue regeneration that shouldn't be possible. How long until I can walk? Taeyang asked. Walk? Voltar's scales rippled with shock. You should be dead. You need months of recovery at minimum. We don't have months, Taeyang said. The reactor is failing. We have 3 months, maybe less, before that weapon escapes. The room fell silent. Everyone knew what he had found. They had seen the images. They had read Minji's analysis. We've been studying the data, Kira said quietly. The weapon is unlike anything in our databases. It's adaptive. Intelligent, it can survive anything and it consumes everything. If it escapes Vareth 9, it could spread across the galaxy, which is why we need to act now, Taeyang said. We need to go back down there. Repair the reactor or build a new containment system. You can't be serious, Voltar said. You barely survived 1 trip. You want to go back? I don't want to, Taeyang replied. But I can. That's what matters, Minji spoke up. He's right. The data shows that the original species, the ones who built the prison, they had similar biological durability to humans. That's why they could work in that environment. That's why the security systems are designed the way they are. It takes a Deathworlder to maintain a Deathworld prison. There's more, she continued. I've been analyzing the genetic markers in the images of the original species. I compared them to human DNA. She pulled up a holographic display showing complex genetic sequences. We share 70% of our genetic code with them. Humans are their descendants. Direct descendants. The alien scientist made sounds of shock and disbelief. Voltar's scales turned pale. Are you saying humans are the children of the species that created this weapon? Yes, Minji said firmly. Millions of years ago, they left Vareth 9 and went to Earth. They settled there. Over time, Earth changed them. They evolved. They became human, but the core durability remained. The ability to survive extreme conditions. It's why Earth is a death world. It's why humans can endure things that would kill us. Kira looked at Taeyang with new understanding. You're not just a survivor. You're a legacy. Your entire species is the legacy of beings who learned from their mistakes and chose to be better. Then let's honor that legacy, Taeyang said. Let's finish what they started. Let's make sure that weapon never escapes. The doors opened again. A tall human man in military uniform entered. He had short gray hair and 3 stars on his shoulder. I'm Do-hyun, Admiral of the Human Space Navy. Corporal Taeyang, Do-hyun said. I came as soon as I heard. The consortium has been in emergency session for the past 2 days. They've made a decision. What decision? Taeyang asked. Vareth 9 is being classified as a human-exclusive quarantine zone, Do-hyun said. Only humans are permitted on the surface. We're establishing a permanent containment facility. The consortium is providing resources, but humans will staff it. We're the only ones who can survive there long enough to do the work. That's wise, Taeyang said. When do we start? Do-hyun smiled slightly. You're supposed to be resting. I've rested enough. What's the plan? The Admiral pulled up a holographic display showing Vareth 9 and the Canyon system. We're sending a team of 20 specialists. Engineers, scientists, military personnel, all human. We're going to build a new reactor facility on the surface, drill down to the containment chamber, repair or replace the failing reactor, and establish permanent monitoring. It will take months, Kira added, maybe years, but it's possible. The consortium will provide the best technology we have. Humans will do the impossible and make it work. I want to lead the team, Taeyang said. I know, Do-hyun replied. That's why I came to ask you personally. This is a long-term assignment. Years on the most hostile world in the galaxy. You'll be the first warden of an alien prison. Are you sure? Taeyang looked at Minji. She was watching him with worried eyes. He knew she wanted him to refuse. To choose safety. To come home. But he also knew she understood. This was bigger than one person's safety. This was about protecting the galaxy from a weapon that could end all life. I'm sure, Taeyang said. This is what I was meant to do. What my ancestors prepared me for, even if they didn't know it. Minji took his hand. Then I'm going too. Minji, no, Taeyang protested. You'll need a xenobiologist, she said firmly. Someone has to study the weapon. Someone has to understand it completely, so we can contain it properly. That's me. It's too dangerous. So is staying here knowing I could have helped and didn't, Minji replied. We're humans, Taeyang. Dangerous is what we do best, Do-hyun nodded approvingly. Dr. Park, we'd be honored to have you on the team. Over the next week, preparations began. Ships arrived at the station carrying equipment and personnel. Human engineers studied the data from Taeyang's expedition and designed new systems. Human scientists analyzed the alien technology and figured out how to repair it. The alien members of the consortium watched with a mixture of awe and fear. They saw humans planning to work in conditions that would kill them in minutes. They saw humans excited about the challenge. They saw a species embracing danger with calm determination. "They're insane," one alien scientist said. "No," Kira corrected gently. "They're human. There's a difference." On the day of departure, Taeyang stood at the window of the transport ship looking down at Vareth 9. His burns had mostly healed. The radiation damage was repaired. He was ready. Minji stood beside him. "Nervous?" she asked. "A little," he admitted. "Mostly excited. We're going to save the galaxy, Minji." "How many people get to say that?" "Only Deathworlders," she replied with a smile. The transport descended through the green storms. This time Taeyang wasn't alone. 20 humans rode with him, each one trained and ready. They landed near the canyon rim where Taeyang had emerged weeks before. The team disembarked into the acid rain. They were equipped with better suits now, designed specifically for Vareth 9's conditions. But even these suits were minimal by alien standards. Just enough protection to make the work possible. They began building. Modular structures went up quickly. Drilling equipment was positioned over the canyon. Power generators hummed to life. Within days, they had established a base camp. Within weeks, they had drilled down to the containment chamber. Taeyang led the first team down the shaft. They wore heavy equipment carrying tools and materials. The heat was intense but manageable. They had adapted the cooling systems based on Taeyang's experience. They reached the ancient reactor chamber. The crystal creatures were there, watching. Taeyang raised a hand in greeting. The creatures remained still, observing. "They know we're here to help," Minji said. She was studying the creatures with fascination. "They're more intelligent than we thought. Possibly semi-sentient." The team got to work. They assessed the reactor damage. They measured the containment fields. They examined the containers holding the weapon. The work was slow and dangerous. The heat never stopped. The radiation was constant. The acid found its way into every crack and crevice. But the humans persisted. Months passed. The new reactor took shape next to the old one. Human engineers worked in shifts, constantly monitoring, constantly building. Some got sick from the exposure. They recovered and returned to work. Some got injured in accidents. They healed and came back. Not one of them quit. Taeyang worked alongside them, welding and wiring and checking systems. At night, he would stand on the surface and look up at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth. Home. A world his ancestors had chosen when they left this nightmare behind. But that didn't mean they could abandon their responsibility. They had created the weapon. They had imprisoned it. And now, millions of years later, their descendants would ensure it stayed imprisoned. 1 year after they arrived, the new reactor came online. Power flowed through new cables into ancient containment systems. The fields.